Welcome. In this issue of our newspaper, we're going to talk about a great Portuguese personality, António de Oliveira Salazar. António de Oliveira Salazar was born on the 28th of April 1899 in Vimieiro, a small village near Santa Combadão, to a humble farming family. His childhood was marked by hard work in the fields. From an early age he proved to be an intelligent child, showing a great interest in school and reading. He stood out from his peers for his dedication to his studies and his constant search for knowledge. After excelling in his studies, António de Oliveira Salazar was admitted to the University of Coimbra, where he graduated in law with honors. During his time at university, he immersed himself in philosophical, economic and political studies, which later influenced his future work as a politician and statesman. This period was also fundamental for his insertion into the political milieu, where he began to cultivate relationships and ideas that would shape his later career. Salazar began his political career in 1926, when he was appointed to the post of Undersecretary of State for Finance. This position marked the beginning of his rise in government and his influence on the country's economic policies. On the 28th of May 1926, a coup d'état led by Gomes da Costa officially overthrew the First Republic. This First Republic was unable to solve the nation's problems, as promised, but accumulated them due to the period of political instability. During this period of political instability, there were 45 governments in just 16 years. The main reason for this political instability was the excess of parliamentarianism. The governments couldn't govern because they didn't have an absolute majority, and since the legislative power was the most important, it was difficult for the government to solve the problems that existed within it, hence the talk of excessive parliamentarianism. It was due to the failure to resolve the problems that the Republic was rejected by its social support base, the middle class and the workers. The First Republic was followed by a military dictatorship. After the political and financial instability that followed the First Republic, Salazar was appointed finance minister by President Oscar Carmona in 1932. His austere management and ability to balance public finances were crucial to stabilizing the Portuguese economy. Salazar implemented spending cuts, raised taxes and controlled the budget deficit, gaining prominence and paving his way towards leading the country. It was with Salazar's appointment that the Estado Novo began, the authoritarian regime that ruled Portugal for 4 decades, which initially, in the eyes of the people at the time, was the best way forward. The Portuguese people were unhappy with the First Republic and its inability to solve existing problems, so they believed that only an authoritarian regime, led by someone with a strong hand, could restore the country, as they were in constant fear and worry of Bolshevism. It was feared that, as in Russia, a communist regime would be established. Salazar promoted the creation of repressive legislation, such as censorship and the political police, to silence dissent. Through the National Union, the only political party allowed, he sought to maintain absolute control over governance, implementing a corporatist model in which unions and associations were controlled by the state. This consolidation was marked by a strong cult of the leader's personality and ruthless repression of political opponents. António de Oliveira Salazar's economic policy was characterized by a nationalist and interventionist approach, with an emphasis on self-sufficiency and protectionism. Salazar implemented policies of autarky, limiting imports and promoting domestic production in order to reduce the country's dependence on foreign countries, with self-sufficiency in strategic sectors, such as food and energy. Salazar's regime also adopted protectionist measures to encourage industrialization and protect domestic industries from foreign competition, establishing high taxes on imported products and subsidizing domestic production. However, the protectionist measures were criticized for hampering efficiency and innovation. Portugal's neutrality during the Second World War was one of the main foreign policies adopted by Salazar. Although he was pressured by both Nazi Germany and the Allies to join the conflict, Salazar opted to remain neutral, claiming that it was the best choice to preserve the country's integrity. This position of neutrality allowed Portugal to maintain trade relations with both sides of the conflict, without favoring either side. This stance of neutrality had a significant impact on preserving Portugal's sovereignty and territorial integrity during this turbulent period in world history. Although Salazar tightly controlled the opposition, there were resistance movements over the years. Many political opponents, including communists, socialists and Democrats, were persecuted, imprisoned and exiled. However, even under repression, there were demonstrations of discontent, strikes and attempts to overthrow the authoritarian regime. Internal and external opposition increased in the 1960s, contributing to the instability of the regime and pushing for political change. Opposition movements to the Salazar regime included both armed and unarmed resistance. The armed opposition was led mainly by the Portuguese Communist Party, PCP, which tried to organize guerrilla actions in the interior of the country. Various political and intellectual opposition movements also emerged, such as the student opposition and democratic resistance groups. These movements played a significant role in challenging the Salazar regime, despite the harsh repressive measures it had implemented. Salazar's decline was marked by a political and economic crisis that seriously affected the Estado Novo, resulting in the regime's inability to deal with growing popular dissatisfaction, as well as international pressures. The regime's repression and the colonial war led to an increase in discontent, while the economy struggled. In 1968, Salazar suffered a stroke, and as a result, was unable to govern the country, thus generating great political instability. Salazar died on the 27th of July, 1970, and an era in Portuguese politics came to an end, but the Estado Novo led by Marcelo Caetano continued, lasting until the revolution of the 25th of April 1974. In short, Salazar's legacy is characterized by a political and social conservatism that left a profound influence on Portugal. His authoritarian and nationalist ideals molded the country's politics for decades, creating an impact on relations with the former colonies, as well as the way Portugal positioned itself in the international context.
É silêncio que volta a cantar, é regresso de heróis às amargas, da cidade que volta a lutar. É deserto que vemos florir, é uma fonte jorrando de novo, é uma aurora que volta a sorrir. Ai, nos olhos cansados do povo, e já ardem bandeiras vermelhas. Nos campos há gritos de guerra, nas trevas da noite há centelhas das rosas em festa na terra. Canta o vento nos trigos doirados, dançam ondas à luz das fogueiras, e nas sombras guerreiros alados erguem espadas dentre as oliveiras. É uma pátria de novo sagrada, acordada da morte esquecida, vitória de nova alvorada, Lusitânia enche esta florida. Vitória de nova alvorada, Lusitânia enche esta florida. Tragam rosas brancas para a pátria morta. Seus olhos de mar perderão a luz, perderão a luz. O sol e a distância para a pátria morta. Tragam rosas brancas, tragam rosas brancas para a pátria morta. Dispersos no tempo, somos folhas no vento, somos folhas no vento que correm a terra. Para a pátria morta, tragam rosas brancas.